conference room smelled like old wood and paper. 5 people sat around the table, waiting. 3 siblings. A spouse, a lawyer with a folder that felt heavier than it should. When the name was read aloud, no one moved. Not because they knew who it was, because they didn't. And yet that name, printed in black ink on legal paper, was about to inherit 40% of everything. This is how an ordinary will reading became the moment a family realized they'd be living with a ghost. Let me take you back to where it started. Margaret Eleanor Whitmore died on March 14th, 2023, at the age of 78. Natural causes. Heart failure in her sleep. No drama. No hospital vigil. Just a quiet exit from a life that, on the surface, seemed equally quiet. She'd been a librarian for 36 years. Widowed at 50. Lived alone in a modest 2-story house in Salem, Oregon. Her children described her as reserved, private, maybe a little cold, but reliable. She attended church occasionally, kept her yard neat, paid her bills on time. Margaret left behind 3 adult children. David Whitmore, 54, was the oldest. An accountant, married with 2 teenage sons. He lived 20 minutes from his mother and visited her every other Sunday, like clockwork. He mowed her lawn in summer, shoveled a driveway in winter. He thought of himself as the dutiful son, the one who stayed close while the others scattered. Then came Jennifer Whitmore Kessler. 51. She'd moved to California in her 20s, built a career in marketing, married a software engineer, 2 daughters, both in college. She came home for Christmas and Thanksgiving, called her mother once a week. Every Tuesday evening, she sent cards. She thought she'd done enough. The youngest was Colin Whitmore, 47, never married. Worked in construction, bounced between jobs. He had a drinking problem that everyone knew about, but no one discussed directly. He lived in Portland, about an hour away, and his relationship with Margaret had been strained for years. But she was still his mother. He still showed up to the funeral. Margaret's estate wasn't massive, but it wasn't insignificant either. The house, fully paid off, appraised at $470,000. A retirement account with just over $200,000. A savings account with another $86,000. Some old bonds, a car, furniture, personal items. In total, roughly $800,000. For a woman who'd lived modestly, who wore the same coat for 15 years and clipped coupons from the Sunday paper. It was more than her children expected. David had assumed maybe half that. Jennifer thought even less. Colin hadn't thought about it at all. The will reading was scheduled for April 6th, 3 weeks after the funeral. David arrived first. He wore a dark suit, the same one from the funeral, and carried a leather portfolio, even though he had nothing to put in it. He just felt it looked appropriate. Jennifer flew in the night before, staying at David's house. She'd printed out a list of questions about estate taxes and distribution time. She wasn't greedy, she told herself, just organized. Colin showed up 12 minutes late, smelling faintly of cigarettes, wearing jeans and a button-down shirt that didn't quite fit. He sat at the far end of the table, didn't make eye contact. The lawyer was Gerald Finch, 62, with grey hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He'd handled Margaret's estate planning for almost 20 years. He'd also handled her late husband's will back in 2006. He knew the family, at least in the clinical way. Lawyers know clients. He opened the folder. "Thank you all for coming," Finch said. His voice was practiced, neutral. "I know this is difficult. I'll do my best to make the process as straightforward as possible." David nodded. Jennifer folded her hands on the table. Colin stared at the wall. Finch began reading. The language was standard at first. Legal preamble. Declarations, Margaret Whitmore, being of sound mind, does hereby declare this to be her last will and testament, executed on September 9th, 2022, less than 6 months before she died. Jennifer noticed that. She glanced at David, but he didn't react. Finch continued. Small bequests first, 10,000 to the church, 5,000 to the local library in her name, personal items, jewelry, photo albums, divided among the children as they saw fit. Then came the house. The real property located at 723 Maple Avenue, Salem, Oregon, shall be sold, and the proceeds distributed as outlined below. David shifted in his seat. He'd half expected to inherit the house directly, maybe buy out his siblings' shares. Hearing it would be sold felt abrupt. Then Finch read the distribution. The remainder of my estate, including all financial assets and proceeds from the sale of real property, shall be divided as follows. Ipost 20% to David Michael Whitmore. David's face didn't change, but something tightened in his jaw. 20% to Jennifer Margaret Kessler. Jennifer blinked. She'd expected equal thirds. Maybe even a little more, given how often she called. 20% to Colin Joseph Whit. Colin finally looked up. Finch kept reading, and 40% to Ethan Brennan. Coyle. Silence. Not the normal pause between sentences. The kind of silence that forms when a room stops breathing. David spoke first. I'm sorry. Who? Finch looked up from the document. Ethan Brennan Coyle. Who is that? Jennifer asked. According to the will, he is a named beneficiary. We understand that, David said, his voice controlled but sharp. We're asking who he is. To our mother, to this family. Finch set the document down. I can't speak to personal relationships. I can only execute the will as written. Colin leaned forward. Our mother left 40% of her estate to someone we've never heard of. That appears to be correct. That's half the total inheritance. Jennifer sighed, doing the math aloud. The three of us split 60%, and some stranger gets 40. Finch didn't respond. He didn't need to. David's hands were flat on the table. Is this a mistake? A clerical error. The will was properly executed. Witnessed. Notarized. I reviewed it with your mother personally when she signed it. And she never mentioned this person. Jennifer's voice climbed slightly. Never told you who he was. Client confidentiality prevents me from discussing those conversations in detail, but I can confirm your mother was lucid, competent, and very clear about her intentions. This doesn't make sense, David said quietly. Finch slid a single sheet of paper across the table. This is the contact information for Mr. Coyle. As executor, I am required to notify him of the inheritance and facilitate the distribution. Jennifer picked up the paper. It listed an address in Seattle, Washington, a phone number, an email. No other contacts. When were you planning to contact him? David asked. This week. Don't, Jennifer said quickly. Not yet. Give us time to understand what this is. Finch adjusted his glasses. I have a legal obligation. We're not contesting the will, David interrupted. We just need time, a few days, to process. Finch considered this. I can allow a brief delay for family consultation, but I will need to move forward within the week. The meeting ended shortly after. They gathered at David's house that evening. His wife made coffee. No one drank. The kids stayed upstairs. Jennifer had her laptop open, already searching the name. Etho Brennan Koyo. Seattle. There's a LinkedIn profile. Looks like he works in tech. 32 years old? Colin frowned. 32? Yeah. David stared at the table. Mom would have been 46 when he was born. The implication hung there, unspoken at first. Jennifer kept scrolling. He went to University of Washington. Works for some software startup. That's all public. No mention of family. No photos that show anyone who looks like Mom. Did she know people in Seattle? Colin asked. Not that I remember, David said. Jennifer closed the laptop. We need to ask the question what cast you, Colin said, though he already knew. Whether this is Dad's son. David shook his head immediately. No, absolutely not. David, Dad wouldn't have done that. People do things, Jennifer said quietly, especially people we think we know. Colin stood up, pacing. Even if that were true, why wouldn't Mom just say it? Why hide it? Maybe she was ashamed, Jennifer offered. Or maybe it's not. Dad's kid, David said firmly. Maybe it's someone else entirely. A godson. A family friend's kid. Someone she mentored. Then why not explain it in the will? Jennifer countered. They had no answers. David couldn't sleep that night. At 2 a.m, he drove to his mother's house. He still had a key. The house felt different. Empty. Colder. The furniture was still there, waiting to be sorted and sold, but it already felt like a museum. A place where someone used to live. He went to her bedroom. Opened the closet. Started going through boxers on the top shelf. Most of it was what you'd expect. Old tax returns. Christmas cards. Receipts for appliances purchased decades ago. Then he found a small wooden box, pushed to the back corner, under a folded blanket. Inside were letters. Not money. Maybe a dozen. All addressed to Margaret, postmarked from Seattle, spanning from 2008 to 2019. The return address was Ecoil. David's hands shook as he opened the first one. It was dated June 2008. Dear Margaret, thank you for your recent letter. I know this correspondence is difficult for both of us, but I appreciate your honesty. I've thought a lot about what you said, and I understand your position. I don't agree with all of it, but I understand. I'm doing well here. Work is good. I've made some friends. Seattle feels like home now, more than anywhere else ever has. I hope you're taking care of yourself. Ethan. David read it 3 times. The tone was polite, distant, like two people who shared something complicated, but couldn't quite name it. He opened another letter from 2012. Margaret, I got your card for my birthday. You didn't have to do that, but I'm glad you did. It's strange, isn't it? The way we exist in each other's lives. Not quite strangers, not quite family. You asked about my work. I'm doing software development now, which I think I mentioned before. It's stable. I like it. I'm trying to build something that feels like mine. I think about what you told me sometimes, about choices and timing, and how lives split off in directions we don't expect. I don't blame you for anything. I hope you know that. Take care. David sat on the floor of his mother's closet, surrounded by boxers, and realized he was crying. If stories like this matter to you, subscribing means you'll be here for the next one. David called Jennifer at 7 a.m. She answered on the second ring, already awake. I found letters, he said. No preamble. What kind of letters? From him, from Ethan, to Mom. Going back 15 years. Silence on the other end. I'm coming over, Jennifer Said. By 9, all 3 siblings were at Margaret's house, sitting in the living room. The letters spread on the coffee table like evidence. Jennifer read them in chronological order, her expression tightening with each one. Colin read 2 and then stopped, staring at the wall. She knew him for at least 15 years. Jennifer said finally, maybe longer. These start when he was 16, David said. Who writes letters to a 16-year-old kid like this? Someone who's connected to him. Jennifer sighed. Someone who cares, but can't say it outright. Colin picked up one of the later letters, from 2017. Margaret, I've been thinking about your question. You asked if I ever resented you. The honest answer is yes. Sometimes, not all the time, and not in the way you might think. It's more like a low hum in the background. A reminder that my life could have been different, but I also know it could have been worse. You made choices I don't fully understand, but I believe you thought they were right at the time. I'm seeing someone now. Her name is Claire. I haven't told her about you. I don't know how to explain it in a way that makes sense. I hope you're well. Ethan. Colin set the letter down. He resented her. He says it right here. But he also stayed in touch. Jennifer sighed for years. That means something. It means she had a secret son and never told us, Colin said, his voice rising. It means Dad maybe had an affair. Well, maybe she did, and we're just finding out now, because she's dead and can't explain herself. We don't know that's what this is, David said, but his voice lacked conviction. Jennifer looked at him. Then what is it, David? He didn't answer. They debated for 2 hours whether to contact Ethan directly. David wanted to wait, talk to the lawyer again, maybe hire a private investigator. Jennifer thought that was cowardly. Colin didn't care either way. In the end, Jennifer made the call. She used the number from the lawyer's sheet, sitting in Margaret's kitchen with her phone on speaker so her brothers could hear. It rang 4 times, then a man's voice answered. Hello. Is this Ethan Coyle? A pause. Yeah. Who's this? My name is Jennifer Kessler. I'm Margaret Whitmore's daughter. Another pause. Longer this time. Okay, Ethan said carefully. I'm assuming you've been contacted by the estate lawyer. I got a voicemail yesterday. Haven't called back yet. Jennifer glanced at her brothers. We're her children. The 3 of us. And we're trying to understand why you're in her will. The line was quiet for several seconds. She didn't tell you about me, Ethan said. It wasn't a question. No, I figured she wouldn't. So you know who we are? Jennifer asked. Ich know of you. She mentioned you sometimes. In letters. You wrote to her for years. Yeah. Why? Ethan sighed. A sound that carried weight. Because she asked me to. Because I wanted to. It's complicated. We found your letters. Jennifer sighed. We read them. And we still don't understand. I'm not sure I can explain it in a way that'll satisfy you. David leaned toward the phone. Are you our brother? The question landed hard. Ethan's laugh was brief and humorless. Half-brother, technically. But I don't think of it that way. The room seemed to tilt. Is our father your father? David asked, his voice tight. No, Ethan said. Your father died when I was 5. I never met him. Jennifer's mind raced. Then, who? Margaret is my mother, Ethan said quietly. Biological mother. She gave me up for adoption when I was 3 days old. The silence that followed was absolute. Colin spoke first, his voice barely above a whisper. She had another child. Before you, Ethan said. Before she married your dad. She was 24. Jennifer's hands were shaking, and she never told us. No, Ethan agreed. She didn't. They arranged to meet in person. Ethan agreed to drive down from Seattle the following weekend. He sounded reluctant, but resigned, like someone who'd been expecting this conversation for years. In the days between, Jennifer couldn't stop thinking about the timeline. Her mother would have been 24 in 1970, unmarried. She didn't meet their father until 1970. They married in 73. David was born in 69. Wait. Jennifer pulled out her phone, did the math again. David was born in January 1960. If Margaret had a baby in 1970, David would have been 1 year old. No, that wasn't right. Jennifer called David. When was Mom born? 1945. Why? And you were born in January 16. Yeah, Jennifer felt something cold settle in her stomach. David, if Ethan was born when Mom was 24, that would be 1969. The same year as you. David didn't respond. She had 2 babies in 1 year. Jennifer said slowly, or she lied about when one of you was born. That's impossible. Is it? David hung up 5 minutes later. I get back. I found my birth certificate in Mom's files. January 14th, 1960, Salem Memorial Hospital. Okay. I also found something else. What? An old photo album, real old, from before I was born. There's a picture of Mom, pregnant. It's dated March 1968. On the back, Jennifer closed her eyes. She was pregnant with you in 68. Yeah. So when was she pregnant with Ethan? Neither of them had an answer. Eden arrived at 1 in the afternoon. David had suggested meeting at a coffee shop, neutral territory, but Jennifer insisted on Margaret's house. He's entitled to see it, she'd said. It's 40% his. Ethan was tall, lean, with dark hair starting to gray at the temples. He wore jeans and a gray sweater, and when he walked through the door, he looked around the living room like he was trying to memorize it. I've never been here, he said quietly. They sat in the same room where their mother used to read, where she'd served them tea and cookies as children, where she'd watched television alone for the last 17 years of widowhood. Jennifer offered coffee. Ethan accepted. They made small talk for exactly 90 seconds before Callum broke. Just tell us, Colin said. The whole story, from the beginning. Ethan set his cup down. Okay. He took a breath. Margaret got pregnant when she was 19. 1964. She wasn't married. The father was someone she dated for a few months. A guy who left town when she told him. She was terrified. Her parents were strict, religious. She hid the pregnancy as long as she could. David's jaw tightened. 1964 would make the child 60 years old now, Ethan said. Yeah, Jennifer's mind spun. That's not you. No, Ethan agreed. I'm 32. But that's where it starts. He continued. She had the baby. A girl. She gave her up for adoption through a church agency. Closed adoption. No contact. She was heartbroken. but she thought it was the only option. Her parents never knew, or if they did, they never talked about it. Colin leaned forward. So, you have an older sister? Half-sister, Ethan corrected. And yes, her name was Anne. Anne Brennan. She was adopted by a couple in Portland. Good people, from what I understand. Was. Jennifer caught the past tense. She died in 2002, breast cancer. I'm sorry, Jennifer said automatically. I never met her, Ethan said, but she's the reason I exist. He explained. Anne Brennan grew up not knowing she was adopted. She found out when she was 23, going through her parents' papers, looking for her birth certificate. She found adoption records instead. She spent years searching for her birth mother. It wasn't easy in the early 90s, before internet databases and DNA tests. But she was persistent. She found Margaret in 1991. Did Mom know? David asked. Eventually, Anne reached out through the adoption agency. It took months. Margaret was resistant at first. She'd buried that part of her life. She'd married your father, had 3 kids, built a normal life. She didn't want to unearth the past, but she did. Jennifer said. She agreed to one meeting just to answer Anne's questions. They met at a restaurant in Portland, talked for 2 hours. Margaret was kind but distant. She made it clear she wasn't looking for a relationship. That sounds like her, Colin muttered. Anne respected that. They exchanged letters a few times, but kept their distance. Then Anne got pregnant. 1990. She wasn't married either. Different circumstances, but some echoes. She decided to keep the baby. Me. Ethan's voice was steady, but Jennifer could hear the weight in it. Anne told me the story when I was 16, who my grandmother was, where she lived. She said she didn't expect anything from Margaret, but she wanted me to know the truth about her family. Did you reach out? David asked. Not right away. I thought about it for 2 years. Then when I was 18, just before college, I wrote her a letter. I didn't ask for anything. I just introduced myself. And she responded. Jennifer sighed. Yeah. It took her 3 weeks, but she did. She said she'd thought about me over the years, wondered how Anne was doing. She seemed sad when I told her Anne had cancer. She asked if I needed anything. Did you? Not really. I had a good life. My adoptive father, Anne's husband, he raised me. He's a good man. I didn't need a grandmother. But Margaret and I started writing, every few months at first, then more regularly. It was strange. We were related, but not family. We cared about each other, but from a distance. She never told us, David said, almost to himself. She was ashamed, Ethan said simply. Not of me, of her past, of the choices she made. She'd spent decades pretending that part of her life didn't exist. Telling you would have meant admitting it was real. Jennifer asked the question. They were all thinking, why did she leave you 40%? Ethan looked uncomfortable. I don't know for sure. We never talked about money, but you must have some idea. Eh? She typed it in her last letter, about a year before she died. She said she'd been thinking about fairness, about how she'd given enough, how I died young, how I was the only connection left to that part of her life. She said she wanted to make sure I knew I mattered. So this was guilt, Colin said. Maybe. Or regret. Or love. In the only way she knew how to show it. Jennifer felt something crack inside her. She gave you more than she gave any of us. I know. Does that seem fair to you? Ethan met her eyes. No. Honestly, it doesn't. I didn't ask for this. I didn't expect it. If I could split it equally with you, I would. But I'm guessing that's not legally simple. David shook his head. The wheel is clear. 40% to you, 22 each of us. Then that's what it is, Ethan said. I'm not going to fight you for more, and I'm not going to pretend I don't need it. I have student loans, my mom's medical bills, from before she died. This money will change my life. It would change ours too, Colin said bitterly. I understand that. Jennifer stood up, walked to the window. Outside, the street was quiet. Normal. Unchanged. She lied to us our entire lives. Jennifer said quietly. She had a daughter she gave away, a grandson she wrote to in secret, and she never said a word. She was protecting herself, Ethan said. I think she was scared of being judged by her own children, especially by her own children. The house sold in June for $460,000, slightly less than the appraisal, after fees and estate costs. The proceeds, combined with the financial accounts, totaled just over $780,000. Ethan received $312,000. David, Jennifer, and Colin each received $156,000. The paperwork was signed. The accounts were distributed. The physical belongings were divided with minimal argument. Jennifer took the photo albums. David took their father's watch. Colin took nothing. They stopped speaking, not dramatically. No big fight. Just a slow, quiet dissolution. David couldn't look at Ethan without feeling like his mother had chosen a stranger over him. Every Sunday he'd spent at her house. Every lawn he'd mowed. Every winter he'd worried about her. And she'd given twice his share to someone she'd only known through letters. Jennifer tried to be rational about it. She told herself it was Margaret's money to distribute however she wanted. But late at night, she'd think about all those Tuesday phone calls, all those years of checking in, and wonder if her mother had been thinking about Ethan the whole time. Colin drank more. 3 months after the estate was settled, Jennifer got a call from a genealogy service. She'd submitted her DNA months earlier, curious about ethnic background, not thinking about anything else. The results showed a half-sibling match, but not Ethan. Someone else, a woman named Patricia Hallis, 61 years old, living in Eugene, Oregon. Jennifer stared at the screen, her heart pounding. She clicked on the profile. Patricia had included a note, looking for biological family, born 1964, adopted through Catholic Services in Portland. Birth mother's name possibly Margaret. Jennifer called David. There's another one, she said. Another what? Another sibling. The first baby, the one Ethan mentioned. She's alive. David's voice went hollow. Anne died in 2002. That's what he told us. But there's a DNA match. A woman who was adopted in 1964. She's looking for Margaret. Jesus Christ. Jennifer contacted Patricia through the genealogy site. They arranged a call. Patricia's voice was warm, nervous. She'd been searching for her birth mother for 20 years. She'd found records indicating Margaret Whitmore might be her mother, but she'd been afraid to reach out. I didn't want to disrupt her life. Patricia Said. She's dead, Jennifer said. She died 8 months ago. The line went quiet. I'm too late, Patricia whispered. Did you ever make contact? Jennifer asked. No. I kept putting it off. I kept thinking there'd be time. Jennifer felt a strange kinship with this woman she'd never met. She had other children, 3 of us, and we didn't know about you either. She never told you? No. We only found out about her half-brother because he was in the will. And now we're finding out about you, Patricia. started crying. Jennifer called Ethan. "You told us Anne died in 2002. "She did," Ethan said. "Then who is Patricia Hollis?" Silence. Ethan found her through DNA testing. She was adopted in 1964, same year as Anne, according to your story. "I don't know who that is," Ethan said, but his voice was strange. "You're lying." More silence. "Ethan, if there's something else, we need to know," he sighed. "Anne didn't die in 2002. I mean, a woman named Anne Brennan did die, but she wasn't Margaret's daughter. She was my adoptive mother's friend, someone who died of cancer, and I borrowed her story because it was easier than explaining the truth." Jennifer felt the ground shift. "What's the truth?" "Patricia is my mother, Margaret's first daughter. She gave birth to me when she was 28 in 1990, unmarried, like Margaret was. She placed me for adoption, like Margaret did with her." "So Margaret wasn't just your grandmother?" "No, she's my biological grandmother. Patricia is my biological mother, but I was raised by adoptive parents. Patricia and I reconnected when I was 18. She told me about Margaret. I reached out to Margaret, not as her grandson, but as her daughter's son, asking to know my roots." Jennifer's head was spinning. "Why lie about Anne? Because the truth was too complicated. Because I didn't want to expose Patricia if she didn't want to be found. Because Margaret asked me not to Margaret at Neo." "Yes." "I told her about Patricia the first time I wrote to her. She was shocked. Patricia was looking for her. They'd never met. Patricia had been trying to find her for years, but Margaret kept refusing contact through the agencies. She said she couldn't face it." "Did they ever meet?" "No. Margaret wouldn't. She was too ashamed, too scared. She told me to keep it quiet, said it was in the past and needed to stay there. But she left you money. She left her grandson money. She left the living legacy of her first daughter money, even though she couldn't face that daughter directly." Jennifer closed her eyes. "Does Patricia know about the inheritance?" "No." "Does she know Margaret died?" "I told her last month. She took it hard. She'd held on to hope they'd meet someday. You need to tell her about the money. It's not her money. It's mine." DeWitt says, "Ethan Coyle. It's morally hers." "Maybe, but legally it's mine. And I'm not sure I'm ready to have that conversation." Jennifer wanted to scream. Instead she said, "I'm going to contact her. She deserves to know she has siblings. Half-siblings. Do what you need to do," Ethan said, "but leave me out of it." Patricia drove to Salem in late September. Jennifer, David, and Colin met her at a restaurant, the same one where Margaret had once met Patricia's birth mother decades ago. Though none of them knew that. Patricia was small, with graying blonde hair and Margaret's eyes. The resemblance was startling. "I look like her?" Patricia asked when Jennifer stared. "Yes, around the eyes." They talked for 3 hours. Patricia told them about her adoptive family, good people who'd loved her, about her search for Margaret, to dead ends, the closed records, the agencies that wouldn't help, about finally finding a name and an address, but being too afraid to knock on the door. "I drove by her house once," Patricia sighed, 2 years before she died. "I parked across the street and watched. She came out to get her mail. She looked so ordinary. I wanted to run up to her, but I couldn't move. She wouldn't have been receptive," David said gently. "I know," my son told me. "Ethan, he said she was kind to him, but distant, that she couldn't handle the past. He got $300,000, Colin said abruptly. Patricia looked confused. "What?" Jennifer explained the will. The 40%, the inheritance. Patricia's face went pale. She left money to my son, but never spoke to me. She was complicated. Jennifer sighed, though the words felt inadequate. She rejected me my whole life, but she gave my child her money. Patricia's voice cracked. What does that mean? No one had an answer. In the end, they learned to live with it, not happily, not neatly, but they lived with it. Patricia and Jennifer became close. They looked alike, sounded alike, had the same dry sense of humor. It was strange and comforting at once. David struggled the most. He'd built his identity around being the good son, the one who stayed, the one who cared. Finding out his mother had a secret family, that she'd prioritized a grandson from that family over her own children, shattered something in him. He went to therapy. It helped, slowly. Colin stopped drinking, then started again, then stopped again. He moved to Arizona. He sends a Christmas card every year, but doesn't call. Ethan kept the money. He paid off his debts, bought a small house in Seattle, started a college fund for the children he might have someday. He and Patricia have a strained relationship. She resents that he benefited from Margaret's guilt, while she got nothing. He resents that she expects him to fix a wound he didn't create. They're all connected now. Whether they want to be or not, the inheritance didn't make anyone rich. It didn't solve anyone's problems. It just revealed the truth that Margaret had spent 60 years hiding. That she'd lived multiple lives. That she'd made choices she couldn't undo. And that those choices had created people who deserved to exist but who she couldn't acknowledge. In her final act, she tried to balance the scales. She gave money to the legacy of the daughter she abandoned. She gave less to the children she kept, perhaps because she'd already given them a lifetime of her presence, however distant. Was it fair? No. Was it understandable? Maybe. Was it enough? Not even close. Jennifer found one more letter in Margaret's house, months after everything was settled. It was in a drawer in the kitchen, unsealed, undated, with no name on it. It was in Margaret's handwriting. I know you'll find this eventually. One of you, maybe all of you. I'm not good at saying things out loud. I never have been. So I'm writing them down, even though I'm not sure I'll ever be brave enough to leave this where you'll see it. I had a daughter when I was 19. I gave her away because I was scared and alone, and I didn't know what else to do. I thought about her every day for 60 years. I wondered if she was happy. I wondered if she hated me. When she found me, I couldn't face her. I know that makes me a coward. I know that's unforgivable. But I'd spent so long pretending she didn't exist that I didn't know how to let her back in. Her son reached out to me. Ethan. He was kind. He didn't ask for anything. We wrote letters. It wasn't enough, but it was something. I'm leaving him money because I owe him. Not him, exactly, but the life I didn't live. The daughter I didn't raise. The grandmother I never got to be. I know this will hurt you. David, Jennifer, Colin. I know you'll feel cheated. Maybe you are, but you had me. For better or worse, you had your mother. You had birthdays, and Christmases, and phone calls, and Sunday visits. You had someone who was there, even if she wasn't perfect. Patricia had nothing. Ethan had letters. This is my way of trying to make it even. It won't work. I know it won't. But it's all I can think to do. I'm sorry for the secrets. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to tell you while I was alive. I'm sorry for a lot of things, but I'm not sorry you exist. Any of you. I hope that counts for something. Mom. Jennifer read the letter alone. sitting in the empty house, and wept. Not because the letter explained everything. It did, didn't they? But because it was the closest her mother had ever come to telling the truth. And because, even now, even after death, Margaret Whitmore couldn't quite bring herself to face her daughter. She could only write to the children she'd kept, apologizing for the one she'd lost. The will was read. The money was distributed. The family was fractured and reformed in a new shape. And somewhere in all of it, a woman who'd spent her life hiding died with her secrets half revealed, leaving behind an inheritance that was never really about money at all. It was about ghosts, about the people we erase, about the cost of shame, and about how, in the end, the truth always finds a way out, even if it takes a will to force it.